This is the Soulfilled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment mentor for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Now here is today's episode. Episode 126. Before I dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you, if you are a highly sensitive woman, you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, however you want to identify yourself with having your own business, and you find yourself more often than not overwhelmed, stressed out, think that you're burning out, then I encourage you to check out the 5 shifts to end overwhelm as a highly sensitive entrepreneur. I'm going to give you various tips throughout that free workshop in what you can do differently to begin to shift that so that you can have more calm in your life, more connection in your relationships, and just feel better overall. Head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/end overwhelm. Now here is today's episode. Well, welcome, sisters. Well, as 2020 finally comes to a close, getting closer every day, yay! I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who has gone out to iTunes and left a rating or a review, because again, this really helps. I get the logarithms, all the things that go behind the scenes for podcasts to be seen by more people, and it reaches further. And I know from the feedback that I've gotten from folks who have listened to the Soulfilled Sisterhood over these last couple years, they've been very appreciative of the different guests and topics that have been covered. I know I've talked a little bit about coaching. I've talked a little bit about mental health. I've talked a little bit about business. So it's kind of, I know, a hodgepodge of a lot of different things, but topics that I'm passionate about, and definitely spirituality. And since it started back in May of 2018, it has been downloaded over 42,000 times. And to me, I had to put that in perspective because it's a very different download rate compared to the other podcast I have done, which is all okay because it's a different audience that I'm reaching. But I had one of my mentors say to me, like, wow, think of all the people you were reaching, and that's just from your home, which is very exciting. So I just want to say thank you so much for all of you who continue to listen, for those of you who have shared my podcast with others that you know, other women that you think could benefit from this, that it continues to reach more and more people, and just so appreciative of all of you who are supporting me and my guests who are coming on. So I just want to say thank you, and I hope that 2021 brings you more of what it is that your soul is calling to you and what it is that your heart is really desiring. All right. In today's episode, I wanted to just talk about the top 10 2020 episodes, those that I have interviewed, those that have been downloaded the most. And I want to start off by saying the number 10 episode that was downloaded is the Feminist Handbook. It's the practical tools to resist sexism and dismantle the patriarchy. This is written by Joanne Bagshaw, and she is a psychologist and also a professor of women's study at Montgomery College. And I cannot tell you some of the women that I have worked or talked with since that episode of when they listen to that. Some of them are mothers, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm definitely going to show this to both of my children, both, sons and daughters. And I had various feedback of just how amazing it is. And I know I told Joanne, I said, I think this needs to be in every single high school so that we continue to change how women are treated, change how we teach boys how to treat women, and just begin to continue to dismantle some of the patriarchy that has gone on for so many years. So that is the number 10 most downloaded episode. The next most downloaded episode, number 9, is episode 81, and that is where Tamara Powell and I talked about busting through limitations in your business, where we talked about kind of our own businesses, why we started them, and, being therapists and doing also coaching as well. and not following really the traditional path, really embracing who you are, your own true authentic self that comes forward, your own uniqueness and what you bring to the world. So we did a lot of talking about mindsets and remember being your own CEO of your business, which I think a lot of women that I've worked with, they have kind of forgotten. It's like, well, I have this business. It's like, yeah, but you're the owner, you're the leader, you're the CEO. You're not doing this as a hobby. And so we talked quite a bit about that in episode 81, which was number 9 in the top downloaded podcast episodes. Number 8 is What is Shamanism? And that is with Carmen Roman, and she is a psychologist out in California. And I just love her perspective of how she's worked with the shaman, and that shaman found her basically as she was working through some things. And she talks about how shamanic work can really help do recovery from past traumas in your life. And it's, again, all these different spiritual practices that we have throughout the world and how they can help heal people. And so I encourage you to check out her information. And she's got a great podcast as well. And she does it oftentimes in Spanish, English and or Spanish. And so she's just doing some incredible work in the world and with women. So I encourage you to go check that episode out. Again, that's episode 88. Then number 7 is Reinventing Yourself After Childhood Trauma. And this is with Carrie Hummingbird. And we talked about her own traumas that she experienced when she was growing up and how she's overcome those and moved through those, and created her own, coaching programs for clients that she works with, and has written a couple different books. But it's really about that own inner healing that you need to do in order for you to be more of who you are meant to be, that maybe got covered up or hurt growing up through abuse. So many women have experienced traumas, and, Carrie really shows that you don't have to really stay stuck in those past stories, and how she literally has reinvented herself and moved forward so that she can bring the work that she does into the world. And so can you. The number 6 episode that has been downloaded the most is actually episode 95. And this is stepping into the feminine energy as a rock star with Megan Jo. And she's done some pivoting this year with COVID, and we talk about how her program, being a rock star, literally on stage, where she has now, she's done things online, and it's just incredible the work she's doing. And she shares quite a bit about her work that she's doing with Marianne Williamson, which is a woman I have followed for years, ever since I was in my early 20s. I think even early 20s I was following Marianne. So Megan Jo actually has some information out on her website now regarding her work with Marianne Williamson. So I encourage you to check that out. Again, this episode that was downloaded is episode 95, and you can check out her work and see if it fits for you. And then the number 5 episode that was downloaded the most is the one I did with Penny Pierce. It's episode 104. It's called How to Stay in Flow as an Empath and a Highly Sensitive Person. Penny Pierce has written so many books, and I would say, yes, they're dense, but oh my gosh, they're just chock full of great information and what you can learn, and stepping more into your intuitiveness and being more of who you are. And she does a lot of different podcasts. Again, you can go out to her, I think it's a resource page she now has on her website, with a ton of interviews she's done if you want to hear more of her. She is so free and giving, and you can just hear the passion of the work she does, and who, and the people that she works with. It's just like, wow. She really kind of cuts through some of those old mindsets and what she calls the left brain limitations, and helps you really get more into the right brain, which is much more in flow and much more connected to your soul and really the higher the higher work that is being done, because you're connected throughout the universe. All right. And then an episode, the number 4 most downloaded is actually the HSP brain and burnout prevention. And that is episode 102. That one was with Esther Bergsma. And she has written a couple different books. One of them is Highly Sensitive Children, which again, it's in Dutch. But her book, The Highly Sensitive Brain, literally is just released on December 24th in English now. So you can go out to the show notes, and I'm going to have a link there for the Amazon link where you can buy the book in English. But it's so exciting because she had shared the English version with me, which I was so excited to read. And if you love to but truly geek out about the brain and how it works, which I have just loved to find out more and more information. This has been one of my passions, seriously, since I was in high school, a teenager. And I think she did a great job of bringing in different research from various resources, along with Dr. Aaron's work, but some other more recent stuff, and how they continue to find out information, and how the HSP brain truly is, as Dr. Aaron has talked about in her work, wired differently. What gets lit up more, the mirror neurons, which is part of the empathy piece of it. But Esther really helps kind of bring that down into not only the scientific and technical stuff, but also like what it looks like in real life, whether it's as a child or her as an adult. She shares some great examples in that book. So I'd encourage you to go out to the show notes, and under the line where it's episode 102 for HSP brain and burnout prevention with Esther, there is a link there that you can go check out the book that has now been translated into English. All right. The number 3 episode that has been downloaded the most, this is me talking about childhood emotional neglect and the highly sensitive person. This is based on Janice Webb's, she's a psychologist, her work. She's written a couple different books, but that is the number. It's episode 87. That episode, again, was the 3rd most downloaded episode, because there are so many highly sensitive people who they may not have had physical abuse, and it may not have been quote, what most people think of as emotional abuse. She talks so much about that emotional neglect, meaning you weren't seen. And that could be for a variety of reasons, which I talk about based on her books that she has written. And I know she's got some courses and things out on her website as well. But there are so many HSPs who experience that growing up, which then can lead to overwhelm and anxiety and depression. And it doesn't need to continue that way. There's ways to actually move through that so that you feel a lot more grounded and focused and you can move forward. All right. Then the number 2 most downloaded episode is with my conversation with Rebecca Ladine in her book, The Mind Body Stress Reset, which is episode 112. That was a big hit because she talks about when meditation doesn't work for you, here are some other techniques that can really help get you focused and staying in the moment. And again, it's a great book. It's based on just a ton of information and traditions that have been around for centuries that can really help you, especially as a highly sensitive person or an empath, being able to reset yourself and stay grounded every single day. Then the number 1 episode that has been downloaded in 2020, How to Be a Spiritual Rebel with Jack O'Keefe. I know I've kind of followed Jack over the year, seen how she was doing some things, and she's done more podcasts and more interviews, and she continues to share her book about how to be a spiritual rebel and just really impact so many people. So if you haven't listened to this episode, I really encourage you to listen to this episode. I just love what she's doing and how, granted, she even shares, we talked at the beginning, like she did some more extreme things to kind of disengage from the world and really tap into her soul and her higher work. And she's like, you don't have to do that, right? You can do it from your own home. And so that's what I just really enjoyed our conversation, and it's so true. You don't have to go to far off lands or ashrams or anything like that to finding the spiritual path that works for you, to stay connected to you, to listen into what you're called here to do. Yeah, that's part of why I love so much the spiritual conversations I have with my guests. Is the inner work is so incredibly important. I can't tell you how many women I have worked with over the years from that overwhelm and stressed out and burning out that they're not giving themselves permission to truly pause. They're saying they don't, quote, have time, and you choose to make time. It becomes a priority. It's your well-being. That's how you do self-care. But really listen to like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Well, maybe now you're like, I want to pivot. I want to do something slightly different. And you can begin that process. But that comes from doing that deep inner work. So that is it, ladies. I hope you've enjoyed this review. It has been so much fun talking with these women over this year, and there's some more that I have lined up for 2021, and I'm going to do some of the episodes, I think, a little different with some of the conversations I have planned, and I'm really excited about what I have in store, and we'll see if it takes true fruition or not for what I'm thinking in my head and whether it plays out that way or not. So until then, may you be well, may you be safe, and thank you again for your listening, your reviews, and until next time. To sign up for my workshop on the 5 shifts to end overwhelm and live a more balanced and connected life as a highly sensitive entrepreneur, go out to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/end overwhelm.